Yeah, I've fasted 6 days on water before. That's the most I've done, 6 days. I'll do more this. So this year I plan to do, I'd like to get to about 12 or 15 on just on water. No water either. Yeah, I don't know about no water. I don't know. Yeah. 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 I've done a little bit of that before. I've practiced that before, but I haven't done it without water. But weeks on end, yeah. Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah. I believe in it. Yeah. It's a very interesting. That's a very interesting conversation. That's at another level to where I'm at the moment, but it's not beyond my my belief system anyway. Yeah, definitely. Welcome back, people. How are we? Who's being authentic when they say good?
Come on, Manu, you're super good.
Monica, tell me how you're feeling right now.
My neck is in a stiff position.
Your neck is in a stiff position. Have a seat down here. Relax.
Well,
That might help you.
we were doing some activities and you did my neck, and ever since we like.
You're in Bali. You should get a massage. It's very easy to get one. Oh, good. Excellent. Who's enjoyed the content thus far? And don't say yes to appease me, because you won't offend me. Trust me. But Manu, you look concerned. But who's gained some relevance from the content thus far, from the ideas being presented? Everybody, yeah? Yeah? Thank you, Manu. That's good, that's great. Did you want to?
All I was going to say was that I think I got a bit lost on the tenants because the writing's so small, I actually couldn't read them, and so I was listening to them and I suddenly got a bit lost in them, that's all.
Okay, no problem. I'm sure if you can go on my website if you want, and you can actually see the model on the website as well under leadership. Yeah, you'll be able to see. So you can just spend some time examining it. Because,
thank you.
Yeah, like I said, agreed, absolutely right. It is something that is very, integrated, in depth, multi-layered, and explaining it in 30, 40 minutes it doesn't do it justice. You can get a grasp of it, but it doesn't do it justice. So I agree with you. Yeah, it is but again, it's just an introduction. But jump on the website if you want to learn more about that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Second question.
Yes, please.
Was just that what if you didn't really resonate with or none of the creator archetypes quite fitted?
Let's go back to them. You'll find that you may not resonate, how can I put it, excitably or profoundly with one or two, but you may find that there's a little bit of all of those in you.
Yeah.
But once you delve deeper and once you begin to understand other aspects of self, you'll be able to connect to these archetypes with a stronger connection will take place. And it's just a process of you delving deeper. So you may not get it immediately, you may not resonate immediately, and that's okay. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. So don't stress too much about that. And you may find that you feel that you're a little bit of all of them, or maybe 4 or 5 of them.
Well, the one I resonate most with is the pilot, but that's because I've been a project manager for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And now I only work on strategic projects because since I realised I was a creator and doing delivery projects was what was stressing me out.
Yeah.
But I can't say that that's, it's a learned archetype, I think, more than a...
it's a reinforced archetype, yeah. But you were attracted to that area or that industry. You didn't just fall into it. You could have fallen into something else. See, our environment influences us simultaneously as we influence our environment. So it's one of those arguments or those philosophical dispositions, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And whilst it is a learned behaviour to be a pilot, you're also, part of you was attracted to that in some capacity. But again, what came first? The conditioning, that maybe an idea was placed in your mind from your environment, and then you cultivated that idea further and further, and you then became attracted to that, and then you became attracted to that industry or that space, and that space then shaped you and formed you more in alignment with that. It's hard to say which came first, but if you do align with that, fantastic. It seems like now you're more in the visionary archetype. You're moving towards more the visionary archetype, yeah? Would you agree with that? Yeah, cool. And that's okay. And that's great noticing. That's fantastic noticing. And that's very, in fact, that's what I advise everybody to do, is really deeply get connected to that and connect to that process and look at your life and where do you think you've fallen into, why have you fallen into that area, understand yourself, how you've behaved in that area, how have you felt when you've been in that environment? Have you felt connected? Have you felt really empowered? If you felt disempowered and not connected, perhaps then you have fallen into that and then you've stayed in there for habit or for another external pressure, but it really hasn't been in true alignment to your archetype. And that can occur as well. That occurs for most people. Most people that you ask, are they happy in their work? Most people aren't happy, aren't content.
I think why I stayed in it for so long was because unconsciously, being a creator, I always look for the creative aspect. Like my sister and my mother are amazing seamstresses, and my sister was a fashion designer, and I always felt that I didn't have those skills, but I was creative in being able to create business processes and organisational design type of things. So I was always looking for the creative aspect of that career path, if you like.
That's a valuable skill as well, to be able to, for lack of a better term, make good of a bad situation, so to speak. So to be able to find your passion or what inspires you within an environment or a space that really isn't conducive to that. That's empowering. It's good for you. It's very important for you and empowering for you to notice that. For all of us to notice that. Now, the shadow self, this is interesting. I hope that to some extent you've been thinking or contemplating this question whilst you're on break. What aspect of self can you disclose around who you are that you do not take ownership of, that you do not acknowledge and that you do not appreciate? And this is the very, very, very early stages of understanding the aspects and the parts of ourselves that we disown, that society rejects, that we don't take ownership for, that we don't take responsibility for. That's okay. It's no problem. It's no problem. So, what is very important to understand here, and I'm going to just delve into the shadow self very briefly, is in life, see, there's a, there's a movement at the moment that is New Age spirituality or a pseudo-spirituality where the philosophy or the ideology is that every person must take full responsibility for themselves. And for example, as an extreme case, if you get cancer, you've caused the cancer. You're responsible for it. If you can't cure it, then you're responsible for it. The reality is that you have played a part in every experience that you have, and you are responsible in the experience that you have. But in terms of causality, the environment is also responsible for the experiences that you have and that you experience, that you partake in. And we can't we can't oscillate in these extremes where we're fully blaming others, we fully blame our environment, or then we oscillate to the other extreme where we fully take ownership and responsibility. There's a story I once heard about a lady that had cancer, and she was of the belief, we're moving into belief systems soon, in the next few minutes. She was of the belief that she had caused that cancer. She was responsible for it. And therefore, she was responsible for curing herself of the cancer. And she did everything that she could to cure cancer within herself. She just couldn't do it. She went to a healer or a shaman, and within a very short period of time, I mean very short, that shaman cured her of cancer. Several weeks later, she committed suicide. And the note said that if she couldn't cure cancer herself, then she wasn't worthy of living because she had caused it. She was responsible for it. And that's an extreme example of taking on responsibility for everything that happens to us. Abuse victims, rape victims. We're diffusing the responsibility of others when we say, well, you've been abused, you've called that into your life, why have you done that? Now, to some degree, you've made choices in your life that perhaps have brought you to that place. But we can't neglect or negate the environment as well. And then the other side of that is, the other extreme is that you diffuse yourself of complete responsibility of the life that you experience. And you blame your environment. You blame others. It's their fault that I'm feeling this. They've done this, they've said that, they've caused this, I'm feeling it because they have allowed that to take place. They've taken action in that area, now I feel that. And those extremes don't work very well. We find in life that extremes just don't work well at all, full stop. In Buddhism, there's a middle path, and it avoids the extremity of emotional dispositions and the extremity of experiencing life in a volatile manner. Now, the shadow self is interesting because it's a fine balance of having to take responsibility for the parts of self that we don't own or don't take ownership for. And doing it in a manner that isn't about blaming our environment or others, but taking responsibility to empower ourselves to find the solution to that state. Because our shadow self resides in the unconscious, as do our belief systems. And it's in the unconscious that the unconscious self governs 90+% of our life. 93, 95, 97% of our lives. So whatever's tucked away and pushed into that unconscious self, whether we consciously take ownership of it or not, it will run our lives. Including the way we respond or react when we are impulsive and highly emotive and volatile in our emotional expression. Or whether we respond calmly, concisely, consciously, openly. The shadow self is very much responsible for a deep part of who we are. And that's why it falls under the resilient warrior, because the resilient warrior has done a great deal, as part of the principle of the sovereign leadership model. The resilient warrior has done a great deal of work on themselves, in themselves, within themselves. And I hope that makes sense, that begins to make sense. Now, I'm going to be open with you and I'm going to share an aspect of shadow self. Now, I've done work on the shadows, and it's a continuous journey and process as well, people. I've done work on the shadow self personally for many years and continue to do so because, again, we're constantly exposed to new ways of being, okay, and new ways of understanding the world. So it's a constant evolving process. So one of my shadow elements, for example, selfishness. I can get very withdrawn. I go into myself, I shut people out, and I become very selfish in the way that I move through the world. Now remember, this isn't about bad or good. This is about acknowledging components or aspects of self that society sometimes shuns or doesn't appreciate or doesn't accept. The greater collective doesn't accept. Another one is your fears can fall into your shadow self. So I have a fear of freedom, not feeling free. So if I'm too constricted or feel too constricted in a relationship, for example, I begin to feel that I'm not free, and therefore I feel that my life is actually being threatened because I feel constricted. I'm coming from a place of deep self-preservation. Now, now's not the time and place, but I've done a great deal of work into the unconscious self, into the child self, in trauma work, and so forth, to go into that and understand all that. So I've equilibrated much of that. Some of it still comes up, but when it comes up, I'm able to deal with it in a very efficient, effective manner. What are aspects of you, perhaps, that you can identify with that you often feel or respond or react to a particular situation, but you keep that hidden, you keep it to yourself because maybe there's a fear of being ridiculed or a fear of being judged, or you just know that that's not accepted by society, but you keep suppressing that emotion. So instead of feeling angry, that anger accumulates and turns to aggression or turns to rage, which is a far more volatile expression of anger and an unhealthy expression of anger as well. Because anger, if expressed... See, anger in our society is shunned upon. We would all agree that anger is not an emotion that is generally accepted and say, well, you shouldn't be angry, that's not... Get in control of your emotions. But anger is a healthy emotion if expressed in a safe manner. Aggression and rage, however, that's an unhealthy expression. And it generally comes from a suppression and a build-up of anger, frustration and fear. A number of other factors as well. So is there anywhere in your life where you can observe the way you behave now that is suppressed or inappropriate, or it's not accurate or in alignment or authentic with what you truly feel? Yes, please share. I'd love you to.
It takes me a very long time for me to say I don't like something. So somebody might do something, say something, and I'll let it go. And I'll let it go. And it may go on for years, or months, or weeks, or days, you know. But I will continue to let it go. And as a consequence of that, exactly as we've just said, I've got a bit of a reputation for going pop.
Yeah.
But you would have had to know me for quite a long time for me to do that. But that's purely because I don't vocalise. You know, you're pissing me off. I need to be able to vocalise, you're pissing me off, stop it. And I don't do that. And as a consequence of that, I have, not necessarily an anger issue, but I'm not exhausting as I should be, if you see what I mean. I should be exhausting that anger as it comes up and not storing it for later, because later never comes.
Correct.
And then people...
When it does, it explodes.
Yes, and then people have this vision or expectation of you where it's like, well, you were okay with that, so I can do this now. And you're okay with that, so I can do this. And so they push the boundary further and further and further. You know?
And it's actually reflective of not the situation, but of a build-up within yourself. That's actually unconscious. Yes. And what happens is you build resentment towards yourself, you build resentment towards the other, and then you also feel tremendously disconnected and fragmented in self. And that becomes more frustrating, and you become more angry.
Yes.
And that anger builds up, and it turns into rage and a very volatile expression.
Yep.
And that's a wonderful sharing. And the more you can notice that, the more you bring that into the sphere of your immediate awareness and consciousness, what will happen is the more astute you will be in saying, you know what, I actually think I need to say something now instead of allowing it to build up. And that's how we learn and we practice. But we become aware first, yes? We become broadly aware, where you are now. Actually, you're on the cusp of being more acutely aware. You're acutely aware because you can pinpoint, and if I were to ask you, can you give me detailed scenarios, I think you'd be able to, correct? Yes. So you're acutely aware now. So the next stage for you is taking action. So broad awareness, acute awareness, you move through progressions of learning through that stage. Acute awareness, take action, growth, repeat. Yeah? But sometimes you skip, when you repeat, you skip the broad awareness, you bypass that now, you're in acute awareness, take action, repeat. Growth, sorry. Acute awareness, take action, growth, repeat. Until it sieves, it moves from your body, moves from your being, from your psyche. Anyone else want to share something that is quite prevalent within them, but they don't express as part of the shadow self? There's a lot more to the shadow self, of course. This is just one aspect of.
Mine's similar, that I don't speak up enough, either in a good situation or a bad situation. But unlike Jan, I don't explode, I just disconnect because I don't like conflict.
Everybody's different, yeah.
I don't explode. I disconnect and then I ostracize.
So, for your own personal gain here and your own personal understanding of self, what this effectively does, what these processes do of neglecting integral key parts of self, is it distances us from ourselves. And a great cause of this is a belief or a lack of belief in self and self-worth and value in self. Value in self to not speak up. Not enough value in self and worth in self to speak up and to speak your truth in an authentic, connected, passive, truthful, open manner. It doesn't have to be aggressive. It doesn't have to be, yeah, maybe that person might be pissing you off, but you're able to say that in a way that, express that and communicate that in a way that they are going to be able to hear it. And the importance of this in the sovereign leadership paradigm or model is that you're able to connect with people, to get what you need from people, but to also give them the gift of understanding where they're coming from. And that's that balance in causality of self and environment, where they actually may be acting in accordance with undesirable states. They may be actually just being rude. They may be hurtful. And they need to know that, so they don't keep repeating that, because that is not something they would want to be doing consciously, I promise you that, unless they're pathological. You're doing them a service. This is the perspective you need to take. You're doing, by expressing your true, authentic truth, you're doing them a service. But it's how you do it that's very important as well, and why you're doing it. The delivery of that is important, but the why and the connection to self. Does that make sense? Does anybody else want to share? Please.
I had some experience, I had some experience of like engaging with the people and people I'm serving for. And when I see them struggling, it's really hard. And knowing what I know or understand where they come from, I understand the conflicts and values and the way they don't know. I want to teach them and help them. But in a way, sometimes it's not the right time to speak up. And often I ended up like, sounded like I'm trying to please, but often they don't have the timing for themselves to engage in the conversation that's meaningful. And then when I drop a little something and meaningful something, 5 years later, they come up with saying, oh, at the time I was arguing with you, actually I understood this is why. And recently I came up with a comment someone was saying. When I mentioned at the time, he was like, yeah, since that I stopped putting something out there, and then I stopped commenting on people's aggressive tone. If something's going wrong, piss them off, or I could have something valuable or understand where they're coming from, but somehow it's how I deliver it. It's so complex issue. And part of me, my shadow self, feel like I'm afraid I can't deliver it now, and I feel like I do.
So you lack the confidence? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I do have a confidence, but the thing is, they're not. I need a bigger impact or collecting your own resources and knowing, giving them from a different perspective instead of pointing at them where they're at. So I don't want them to make them feel bad about themselves.
Do you feel part of your shadow self is blaming?
No, not me blaming.
No, you blaming them for their circumstances? I'm a little bit lost to what you're saying.
Yeah, there are parts
That's
in
part
both,
of it?
and it's quite complex situations I'm talking about. Sometimes it's, yes, my purpose is this, but sometimes I really see people who is not. That's why I shut up, and then I don't go to on social media, for instance. Even people are seeking for, I would ask them to go for the book, for the sessions, and I'll work with you. Otherwise, I wouldn't say a thing, because they have long list of their personal problems and stories, which I'm unable to. There are tons of things I can come up with resolving that issue, but this is not the right time. and this is the time we need to dedicate for them to be able to focus.
How does that
also
integrate into an aspect of self that you don't express because of fear or embarrassment, or
No.
because you don't take ownership of it?
I think, I feel like I need to be a little bit selfish for myself and having the time for myself. Otherwise, I could dedicate myself hours and hours. Often I do lots of free stuff, but there are people often coming up with, I don't have money, I can't do this. When they come up with, they have tons of problems, and then money seems to be their blocking point. And then I could say, well, you would have to bet your all.
Would you say money is your blocking point as well?
I should also see so, yes.
Okay.
And
so
those
generally,
are like between.
So generally, when that occurs, we're looking at coming from a space of, obviously there could be a number of potential reasons why that's occurring, but you're looking at, again, self-worth issues. Are you worthy enough to receive that remuneration for the service that you're providing?
I do feel worthy enough my service and values I deliver. I really in it, but I do feel they do need. They're not ready for receiving, and they do need a little bit of time to invest or understand this thing or something like that.
Okay, so just for time purposes, we need to move on.
Yeah.
But I need you.
This is a really big issue. I don't sometimes. I get bombarded with the problems, and I can't solve the problems, but I do need for them to learn to invest in themselves instead of me offering free and free and free.
Yeah, but what I need you to do and have a think about is ask yourself why you're not vocalizing it. So what is the underlying tonality behind your lack of taking action in that area? Is it a fear? Is it an apprehension? Is it a fear about being ridiculed, not being accepted, not being heard? Is try and understand the emotive function or the personal function behind what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What you're trying to express now?
I think another could be, if I could, free of being told like greedy, probably could be hidden resignation.
Okay, there we go. So now you're starting to extrapolate that. That's better. That's more in alignment with you have and this is going to be really empowering for you around belief systems when we tackle those in a moment. Okay? Cool. Did you, Manu?
Yeah, in my business, it's a multi-faces business, right? So what I faced was when I was dealing with someone, and they have multiple faces. In my front, it's completely different. It's a very rosy picture, but when you go, you see, look around, the other side of the picture, it's completely different. So sometimes I just felt very frustrated. What exactly is this going on around? And it's with all the people, not even one or two. It's with all the people I'm dealing with. So when I understand, it's very normal, when I took this, because I was getting frustrated, and I was not even able to sleep. I was not even to focus on my business. But luckily, I took ownership of my feeling. Why exactly is this going on? Why are they thinking in these terms, and why am I bothered, right? And when I took the ownership, then the whole scenario turns up. It's completely different. And this is what I really appreciate about this feeling, that I have taken ownership, and it has changed. My business, my problem solving, and everything.
That's very empowering, because we can alter the dynamic by which we respond or react to a situation. We are empowered with that choice. So we must realise that we are empowered. If something doesn't go our perceived... See, expectations are very rigid by nature. If you have an expectation or an idea or a thought about something or how something should be, should is a really fucked up word. It's very dangerous, because it sets us up for... It sets us up for disappointment, as do expectations. I would replace, if I were you, the word expectation with preference, because language is very powerful in how it impacts us. And when we have preferences, we are more fluid. We have a preference of how we'd like an outcome to be, But if it doesn't go that way, we can adapt and be agile and innovative, and we can deal with that accordingly without becoming emotionally volatile and losing our shit and losing our ability to problem solve or be creative or function effectively. Because sometimes life doesn't go as we plan it. But if we have a preference as opposed to an expectation, and the preferences are very fluid, we also can see the value in an outcome not turning out the way it should have or could have. Expectations are very rigid and constrictive by nature.
Can you elaborate with an example?
Yes. If I expect all of you to be enthralled and happy and bowing at my feet because of the conversation that we're having and the teaching that I'm giving you and all that, and your feedback is, well, that was pretty average, Stef, I'm going to get sad. I'm going to get fearful. I'm going to get defensive. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get frustrated. How dare you criticize my models? What about the teaching that I've been doing? I've been studying for years. And all of a sudden, that focus becomes energy, and we run with that energy. Now, if I have a preference that I come here, and my preference is to be of service to you the best way I can, and how you respond to me is irrelevant if I'm being the best version of myself. Because I know that I have a belief system that I cannot make everybody happy. And I will not resonate with everybody. And that's okay. And the outcome is that you were not really happy with my service, but I say to myself, that's the best I could do with what I have right now. Okay, I'll take that on board. The mindset's more constructive. The mindset's more open. The mindset is more inclusive. It's thinking, okay, well, how can I improve next time? Maybe I ask some more detailed questions. Because preferences allow us to be open. Expectations force us to be rigid and constricted. Can you understand that? Because our emotions, the way we respond emotionally, sets the trajectory for our life and how we feel. Because the feelings are very important. We negate feelings. The limbic system is a very powerful part of the brain that governs emotional self-regulation. You are empowered to respond in a particular way to a situation. Now, and we go back to Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, where he was in a prisoner camp, in a Nazi concentration camp. And he chose to respond. He was surrounded by aberrant behavior, violence, horrific experiences. But he chose to respond with love, and care for himself and for those around him. That was his choice. Because he said, no one can take away what is in here. No one can control this. They might be able to control where we go and if we're chained up and how much food they give us and how they treat us, but how I respond to that treatment is here. But if you have an expectation that you latch onto and you don't let go of that expectation, you are bound by one outcome that is so unrealistic. It is unrealistic to think that you are guaranteed anything in life. There are too many external variables. The environment it fluctuates too much. There's no guarantee that a meteorite will not land here right now in the next 5 seconds. You have no guarantee. And I wouldn't even have an expectation about that. Based on past history and the evolution of Earth and our solar system and what we know about cosmology, the chances are very slim, but it's not impossible. Remember that. There's a lot we don't know as a species and as individuals. Have a preference that doesn't happen and continue to live your life and adapt to your surroundings, adapt to the outcomes that occur. Because when you're rigid in your expectations, you limit yourself to one outcome. That's it. One of infinite outcomes. But when you have preferences, you're open to the different outcomes that may occur and you're open to the teachings that may occur from that outcome. Now, I'm a fairly, again, it's an arbitrary term and it's very relative, but I'm a fairly intuitive person. I'd like to think I am. My intuition's growing more and more every day because I pay attention to that as part of me following my model of sovereign leadership, infinite vision and intuition. Now, how you were last week and how you are this week is a little bit different energetically. I don't think I'm different. I think I was very excited coming here, more so actually this week than last week, because I had an understanding of how you were and what we learned and we shared. But energetically, you're a bit flat as a group. Now, whatever that means, it's irrelevant. We don't need to discuss it now because we don't have the time and space to do so, and I'm not your personal therapist. But beyond that is ask yourself, what can I do, who can I be to move myself from a state of being less open and receptive and more open and receptive, and take advantage of every moment we have. When you sleep, you should take advantage of your sleep. When you're here learning, you should take advantage of your learning. When you're exercising, take maximum advantage of your exercise. Now, it's not only the level of attention that we have in that space, but it's also our intention, which sets our emotional understanding for self and the way we respond to that set of circumstances. Does that make sense?
Can you just say that last bit again?
Our intention allows us to feel emotionally a particular way, which allows us to gauge the quality of the experience that we have. So if we are focused on disharmony, disconnection, on a negative emotion, which is not necessarily unhealthy, negative emotions can be healthy as well, it's just the way that they're expressed. And we are not focused in the present moment, we're losing the value of that present moment. I'm going to mix things up a little bit. We've got some very exciting work that's coming up, where we're going to go through some tools and we're going to look at our belief systems. And before we do that, I want all of you to go for a walk on the grounds outside. The sun's out. I want you to have your shoes off if that's okay, and I want you to place your feet grounded on the grass, and I want you to come back in 3 minutes. And I want you to come back in 3 minutes a renewed version of self, a self that is open to going deep, a self that is open to learning and also teaching and sharing your personal wisdom and your stories and being very present. And I don't want you to think about or worry about what's happening in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, a year's time, what happened last week, what happened this morning, what happened yesterday. Maybe you're missing your family, maybe you're not. Forget about all that. Be present. Ground yourself, set an intention for grounding yourself and being present, and I will do my best, I promise you hand on heart, I will do my best to deliver the information that I have available here in the best way possible, in the most resonating way, the most authentic way possible. That's my promise to you, as I did last week, which I believe you all agreed was very conducive to your own growth and conducive to my growth as well. I learned a lot last week. I'm learning too. We're learning together. 3 minutes. Count 3 minutes in your head, come back. Renewed, revitalized. Yeah, good. Okay, it's great noticing. So
it's like I'm not obviously I'm not taking responsibility for that. In order to just recognise it,
yes,
honour it, put it to one side, and fully present.
Okay.
So I try and do that. I try and be really.
I appreciate that. As that's coming up, right, just like get it out of here and write. Even while I'm talking, just write. Get out. Right, because you'll always have access to the video. Don't worry. But it's more important, man. What's coming up, you're not putting it back down again. Yeah. Because if you put it back down again because you're trying to be present, then it's going to come up again in another way. So just write it out, get it out, and you'll find that you'll be able to focus more and become more present that way. Yeah. Excellent. Life is interesting, my dear. Very interesting. We just simply have to be open to it. Very good.
I've just come out of farming where I spent all my time. It's 3 months living in country.
Yeah, very much so. And intention's everything, yeah? And awareness as well. Like we can be involved, this is an example here. We're learning, we're growing together. But if we're not present and attentive, and we don't have an intention to really absorb the maximum amount of information we can be in that environment. It doesn't mean anything. We have a very innate ability to shut off. The brain, the human body does that. The ego self does that because it's about self-preservation. It's very good at doing that if it needs to. For whatever reason, it feels that its life is being threatened. Revitalised, re-energised, refocused. We're back. Bang! 9 areas of life. We're not going to go too much into this because we don't need to, because we've covered it already. But this is a tool for understanding self and for balancing our expressive states, for balancing our focus in life. I would assume, please correct me if I'm wrong, most of you are, I don't like this term guilty, but most of you are guilty probably for working too much, for focusing on your businesses and neglecting yourself, your health, your family, your friends too much. 15, 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Whether it be your business, whether it be someone else's business, you've done that in your past. That's imbalance. That's not mastery. The 9 areas of life assist you to be masterful by giving you context, by giving you substance, by giving you a clarity around what each area of life represents and how to be masterful, congruent, and authentic in that area. Who's noticed a change in the way I'm delivering information right now? Do you know why? It's not me. It's you. I'm now showing up as you're showing up. And I do that purposefully. Remember I told you last week, everything I do purposefully. It doesn't mean I'm going to be screaming or speaking loudly for the next hour and a half, but I'm more engaged now because you are. Doesn't mean I was less engaged before, per se. But now I'm meeting you where you are. That's the power of nature, by the way. It's the power of attention and intention as well. Hence why it's a key tenet of the authentic self model, because it leads to authenticity. It leads to being very truthful to self. 9 areas of life. Powerful tool for understanding self. Okay? Now, let's look at our belief systems. Cool image. Let's do some exercises. Let's get into our belief systems and let's begin to understand where we are limited. Let's begin to understand where we can enhance ourselves, and let's begin to understand, where our beliefs actually hinder or are hindering our progress our models of reality about the world, about how we move through the world, expectations about how we should be or how they should be in a particular relational dynamic. And how those beliefs, when they're rigid through expectation, set us up for failure, for unhealthy failure. Because failure is very healthy. But when failure is not attended to, when we don't attend ourselves to failure, when we don't look at failure, observe failure and see it for what it is, which is feedback, which is vital information telling us who we can be, who we have the potential to be, then failure is unhealthy. But when we do that, failure is healthy. But our models of reality can hinder us, or they can prop us up. They can elevate us. They can bring us to a place of deeper understanding of self. Now, a little bit of information. As you know, most of my slides, very few have a lot of writing on them. That's not how the slides are there for impact, for visual impact, but for enhancing a particular idea or expression. But we're doing some exercises now, so it needs to be up on the board so you can see it, because I don't have handouts. Otherwise, I'd give you pamphlets, handouts, but we don't have that. Not the type of presentation it is. So, we're expanding our understanding of our beliefs. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time. So, I'm going to give you some time now. I'm probably going to have a bit of I'm going to put the seat down, I'm going to have a lay down, I'm going to relax. So, very relaxed. You're open now. Now you're open. Now you're looking at questions. So, let's just go through the questions as a starting point. Cool, I just wanted to just double check something. Cool. So there's 3 key questions that we're going to tackle in this first phase. 3 key questions, okay? And they're all around our belief system. So identify all of the belief systems in your life currently that are, now, caveat, sorry, this is an exercise that takes days and weeks actually, because you're always constantly referring to it. So when I say all, identify the prominent beliefs that come to you in your mind now, okay? In your life that currently underpin your behaviours, your attitudes, and affect the direction of your animation. Animation is your life, your expression, across all 9 areas of your life. Think laterally and in a connected manner here. So, when I say all 9 areas of your life, if you get stuck on that, I can come back to that there. But it's really more just in your life, in the various areas of your life, in the prominent areas of your life. Remember, this is a fast-tracked version of this. This is something that you would constantly do and refer to and think into. And it really, when I first did my shadow work, which is just an exploration of self, it took me, and it's never really finished per se, but before I got the bulk of it out, it took me weeks. Like I would go back to it, like I spent 3 or 4 hours on it day one, and then every day I'd chip away 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes, just thinking, looking, observing, feeling. This is a process, so please don't think you're going to narrow every belief system. You have something to say?
Yeah. When you say underpin, what exactly does this mean?
Okay, good question. Very good question. Let me think of a relevant example. Okay. I'm here presenting to you. I'm behaving in a particular way. My behaviour is as a motivational coach, inspirational speaker, teacher, whatever. That's a behaviour. I'm speaking to you in a particular way because my belief is that every single person, their lives matter. They have value. I believe, one of my belief systems is that every single person has infinite potential. And I have a belief that it is my duty, it is my own calling, self-proclaimed calling, to do my best to bring that out into everybody, to bring that out of everybody. So my belief around people's potential underpins me standing here right now speaking to you as a behaviour, as a congruent career path, for example, as a vocation, as a mission, as a vision, as a purpose. Does that make sense? Somewhat, yeah?
It doesn't, and it doesn't, because what you've just said to me fits in my category of my why, my purpose, whereas my belief system is more about what are the standards to some way that I live by, and the two are not quite the same, because for me, my beliefs or my value system are like duty, honour, love, this kind of thing.
They're moral value systems, moral belief systems. What are your belief systems around, or what are your models of reality around the world that you live in? So, okay. Go back to the example that you gave around the way you deal with people when you're angry. So don't look at the belief systems, people. Look at your behaviours first. So look at your prominent... So here, the focal point is your behaviours. Look at the prominent behaviours you have in your life. And if you ask yourself, well, how do I look at the prominent behaviours in my life? Look at the prominent relationships you have. It's very easy to do. You can everyone here could name their top 5 relationships. Wife, children, business partner, client, whatever it may be, okay? Then look in those areas of those relationships, how you behave generally in those relationships. And then look at what belief systems or models of reality or the way you view the world allows you to behave in that way in that relational dynamic. Does that make more sense? Perfect, great. Now, just as an example, let's just follow on to this to give you more clarity. If you look at, name someone that you, are you married? Was. Can we use that as an example? Is that okay?
Oh,
yeah. So,
I'm sure there's some anger in there.
so with your ex-husband,
Yeah.
look at the way you used to behave with him.
Mm-hmm.
Prominently. And of course you behave in many different ways. You don't just behave one way. It's not like you're constantly happy or constantly angry with someone. But just the way you interacted with him, generally speaking. In volatile situations, in extreme situations. When we observe extreme situations, that's a really good idea of our prominent behaviour types, yeah? And then begin to decipher and understand what belief systems or models of reality allowed you to behave in that way. So for example, if you suppress yourself constantly in that relationship and you maximise him and minimise yourself, did you maybe have a belief system about men being superior to women somewhere in you? I don't know. Only you know. But it's a journey of exploration. Like I said, be very clear. Let me be very clear. This is a crash. What's before a crash course? I don't even know. This is not even a crash course. This is heavy, deep stuff, guys. We're just touching. We're not even scratching the surface. We're just looking above the planet. We're not even on the planet scratching the surface. We're looking above with these exercises. These are deep exercises that require a tremendous amount of time and insight. When I do this with my people, I'm back and forth like I am with you now, but more, to give you clarity. Because I understand that question in and of itself, that's not clear enough. But it's clearer now that I've spent the next 5-10 minutes elaborating upon it, correct? We all agree it's clearer now? Yeah. Don't be hard on yourself. If you get stuck, just begin to look at the prominent relationships in your life. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 relationships in your life as a starting point. Maybe even just one. Just choose one relationship. Look at the prominent behaviours in that relationship that's current. You can even go past if you want, because more than likely, unless you've equilibrated it, that belief system will still be prominent in your life today. And then look at, potentially, it's a brainstorming activity. Potentially look at some of the belief systems or models of reality that would underpin those behaviours. How's that sound? Yeah? Better? Clearer? Go for it. Spend some time. Start with number 1. Don't even worry about number 2 or number 3 just yet. Just start with number 1. Let's just do it in bite-sized chunks. Let's break it down bite-sized chunks. And you don't have to be, if you're writing, great. If you're not, if you're thinking, that's great too. Just feel. You have time. I'll tell you when you... And if you don't come up with anything, that's okay. We'll pull a little bit out. We'll make it happen. That's what we do. Yeah, I'm just testing if it was. just let me know when you're done as well, just so I know. Just grab my attention. I'm just writing some information down. It'll be relevant to us after. Be patient, be kind to yourselves. Done? Done? Yeah, of course, yeah. Just stay with one relationship, stay with a small set of behaviours, remain with potentially, it's brainstorming some of those belief systems, those models of reality, or the way we view the world, the way we think about ourselves and others, and the way things should be. That's another key concept there. Belief systems are how things should be, how life should play out. That will underpin your belief system. Just continue that as you're going. Let's move on to number 2. Do our beliefs across all areas of life align with and support the pursuit of our purposes, dreams and aspirations? Speak to this and go into detail and deconstruct this question. Now, what that means is, last week we looked at our purpose. Now, of course, you would have had quite an intricate understanding of what your purpose and your vision for self is anyway, which is great. So in relation to what your purpose is, and then in relation to some, very few, of the beliefs that the plausible possible beliefs that you've outlined here, do those beliefs align with your purpose? Are they congruent with your purpose? For example, one of my grandest purposes is to assist people in recognizing their magnificence and their infinite potential. Now, if I have a belief system that people are shit, that people are bad, there's going to be a disconnect there. Or that people... Now, that's not a good example, actually, because people can still be bad, whatever that definition is, and I can still assist people to connect to the infinite potential. Rather, what about this? If I have a belief system that most humans are incapable and not able, then there's a disconnect between my purpose there, what I stand for and what I actually believe, what I really think about the world, or an aspect of the world. You understand that? So number 2 is really looking at, is there disconnect between my beliefs and my purpose? I spent some time speaking to that. And speak to it in the first person, speak to it as however you wish to, on paper. And also, in that process, write whatever else you wish to write. Now, for time purposes, people, when we share, and I definitely want all of us to share, is I want you to be very concise with what you're reading and very clear. So when you're writing, come from a place of clarity and expression. Okay? It's actually good. Sometimes it's good to be on the clock because it refines our thinking and our expression as well. Richard Branson said, anything more than 7 words and you've lost me. So that's why he loves Twitter so much. So Richard Branson released a story, released a comment. This is really interesting, a slight tangent. But this is about being very concise in our expression, because we can get people very quickly. We get their attention. If we've got their attention and they're of value and meaning to us, they can impact our lives and we can impact theirs. He released a competition that said, write a short story. No, was it him? I don't know if it was, I was reading in his book. Anyway, there's a short story. There was a competition that was released. Write a short story in 7 words or less. And I'll tell you what the winning story was. Write a story in 7 words or less. It's like, is that even possible? Babies' shoes for sale, never used. That's the story. That's deep. That's deep. Isn't that interesting? That's powerful. So whilst language is very powerful and the spoken and written word is very powerful, when we are concise in our speaking, that can be more empowering for us and for others as well. So just be, as a side note, just be as concise as you can be, because we want to all be able to share and share effectively. So number 2 is about that disconnect. I'll give you another couple of minutes to continue number 1 if need be, and continue processing number 2 as well. Number 3 is, do our beliefs, and please don't focus or worry about across all 9 areas of life because you haven't had the capacity and the chance to explore that today, but do the beliefs that you have explored today or that you've brainstormed today inhibit us or allow us to expand and excel in our lives? And do they support others in our close circle of influence to do the same? And if so, or if not, how so? And we'll explore this together as well. The above really begins to introduce you to an understanding of our beliefs and deciphering where our behaviours and actions are actually grounded, what they're actually grounded in. Because we must understand that our models of reality and our belief systems demonstrate to us how we behave in life, how we move through the world. They underpin that action. Move to answer these as honestly as possible, of course, and spend time with these questions. And my suggestion is always immersing yourself in nature when you're moving through these deep processes of query and transitioning into self and asking deep questions of self. And think and feel to this process of self-inquiry with courage, patience and openness. And you need that. And you need that 3P model of understanding the world. Practice, persistence and patience when we're moving through this, because it can be very complicated. It can be very intense. Remember, we're just the beginning stages here. Have you? Interesting. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. I'm going to give you purposely another couple of minutes, and then we're going to discuss these, and we're going to move on to the next set of questions. We've got quite a bit to get through. My assumption is that we won't get through the conscious communication model today, unfortunately, but I did have it there as just in case. Yeah, I know it would be, but unfortunately we're... yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we will. See how we go. It is very useful. In fact, I'm very. If any of you understand or know Australian television, I'm very excited. Like Big Kev. Who remembers Big Kev? Yeah, you remember Big Kev? You remember Mel? Yeah. He unfortunately died of a heart attack, but he was a very big, robust, verbose gentleman, and he used to sell cleaning products. And he used to say, "I'm excited." He's very excited. If you understand the analogy, if you knew the commercial, it would make sense. It's quite funny. It was a silly Australian slang commercial advertisement on television. Okay, let's wrap that up. Keep writing if you need to. I can see who's writing and who's not. Monica, let's start with you, if that's okay. Just very briefly read out what you've written, and let's go from there, yeah? So let's start with question 1. Maybe you identified, you don't have to go through the relationships or the behaviours that you identified, but just some of the belief systems that were underpinning those behaviours or relationships.
I've discovered quite a few very limiting. I thought overall, like...
I can see. It's good.
Yeah, limiting beliefs I had. I thought, oh, I've done no limiting belief, whatever. You know, intellectually I understood it.
Yeah.
But lots of the time I was trying to dig deep to my soul why what is it I'm stuck with and feeling stuck and being held back. One of those I don't have time, and the second dilemma I have is people talk people talk too much, they don't do anything, I need to focus on my stuff. And that is sort of like a rejection to connect with the people.
Yes.
In line with. So that's really deep shit.
It is.
So, and the other parts, I need to work hard and then exhaust myself working hard.
That's
and
another
relationship.
belief system you have. Yeah.
Yes.
You must be, to be a valuable human being, you must work hard.
Yeah. And another thing I discovered, I often think, like, people don't have money, people have problems. And it's useless to listen to their problems unless I can be the one to solve it. Before I solve it, I need to reach thousands of people at once, and that's why I need to focus on my work. That's my dilemma and connection and meanings I put in myself. It's like, wow, that's affecting every part of my life. And I was putting lots of those, saying like, people have problems in my business, and that's the purpose why I do what I do. But another way, like, I need to work hard, and money, people don't have money, that's why I don't have money.
Wow, that's amazing revelation to accomplish that in 10, 15 minutes.
These only 3-4 different limited beliefs could affect every part of my life, which is wow, deep.
We're going to look at limiting beliefs later, but you've identified them as limiting beliefs. But
I have, yes.
Yeah, effectively they're just belief systems. They become limiting when there's a disconnect between our purpose, what we wish to achieve, who we wish to be, and what we're actually doing. That's when they become limiting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just belief systems. They're our views of the way the world works. But you've identified them already as limiting beliefs because you've got clarity. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they seem just general talk, and my conversation comes up, popping around, but I don't see them as, I thought that's the reality of the world, yes. But actually, I know well enough that's not the reality of my own self, and it shouldn't, and I need to shift that in a way. So,
thank you. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful sharing, and I have got a lot from that. And that is something that you'd want to really explore a lot deeper.
Yes.
Keep moving with that, That's something that's an example of the extrapolation that's required. That's just one small portion of one area of life that we then go into deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you have that depth of clarity and understanding, it just opens you up tremendously. It changes the way, you can go, wow, I've had this belief system, this doesn't serve me anymore. New belief system. And that's then reinforced with practice, with thought patterning, with taking action. And you reinforce a new way of being, neurally and emotionally, psycho-emotionally, yeah?
Great. Well, I've got a whole host of belief systems that I feel really do serve me. Things like, I'm sure everybody has, a belief that everybody has a right to basic needs being met, clean air, clean water, shelter, etc., equality for all, irrespective, etc. So there's no point going through all of those. I also have some belief systems that I have question marks around that I think I definitely have to do some work around, when I work with people who are super below the poverty level, monetizing myself and my work when I'm working with such incredible poverty. So I have a disconnect there. I also have a disconnect with self-promotion. I have a resistance, like we have a video thing to make tomorrow, it's an interesting challenge for me. I think there's some link there, the discomfort to something egoic, which I have to do a little bit of work on. I'm much more comfortable behind the scenes, even though I actually front all my trainings and stuff. And then I also have a whole set of personal beliefs which kind of permeate both my relationship side of the world, friendships and stuff, and my work, which is something I call conscious awareness practice, which is a whole set of beautiful tools to exactly do what you're doing, but in a slightly different way, and obviously not as deliberate as you. It's much more subtle in a way, but I have a belief system that I really also have to look at, which is I believe that everybody, when we realize that there are tools to help us become conscious, that we all live 99% of the time unconsciously, will be super excited by this, and it feeds everybody has this, to use your words, the potential to step into magnificence through that conscious awareness. And I bring this into my workshops, I joke about my workshops. Actually, you think you're doing straw bale building or clay plasters or whatever. This is a conscious awareness practice workshop, and I have exercises around all that. So I have that in my relationships, and I have a belief system that therein lies a win-win. Therein lies, a belief that with the power of authentic communication, everybody would want a win-win in this situation. So that doesn't always serve me, because actually that is not true. That then becomes something else. It becomes, my belief system on somebody else, right?
And then you set yourself up for disappointment.
Absolutely.
Because it becomes an expectation.
Absolutely. And therein, there's that whole dodgy area around expectations. I mean, for years now, I've banished the words blame and should from my vocabulary and my whole way of being in life. And yet I can see that wherein lies my own disappointments, wounding, hurt, damage, and it's because of my I'm responsible. My expectation level's absolutely not being met.
When we project our belief systems onto others, when it's out of our control how they would perceive that, we become very constricted and rigid in that understanding of the world. And therefore, we can say, okay, this belief system doesn't serve me because I'm constantly being disappointed.
And that's, that's the other thing, my total belief that if I just persevere, therein lies the possibility of how the power of communication to open. And actually, a big learning for me in this is, seeing how difficult it is for me to let go of that and walk away and move on from something that is wounding, damaging, and actually doesn't serve me, and probably not the other person. So that's interesting, and it's like offer it and then step away, to have no attachment to outcome. And then those that want to work with that, fantastic, and engage on that level, great. Otherwise, you're right, it becomes an expectation. Anyway, there's loads more, but we haven't got a lot of time.
Thank you so much for sharing. So far, wonderful insight, people. Manu, please.
Yeah, my belief system in my life, which supports my behavior, my attitude and affection in the direction, right, is to be happy, right, and which I feel everybody is struggling, which according to me is very simple, and I have a very strong belief on that. It's to know your inner self. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, is the belief system that everybody should be happy? Is that, everybody has capacity to be happy? Yes.
Yeah. Everybody has a capacity which you ignores just because of the external factors, and because the door is, you are seeing it from the outside, not from the inside. So my belief system, which guides me for every direction in my, be it business, be it my life, be it my family, or all 9 directions, whatever you call it, right? Areas of life, is that to know your inner self, and the capability to know your inner self, which guides me to have a positive approach, which people are not having it, to never give up, which people give it like, it's not my cup of tea, it's very easy, and it guides me to be, to be in a helping nature, to be in a kind nature, to share my resources with others, and to explore new things, to gain more knowledge. And and the most important part, just follow your instincts, right, which actually remains in a cloudy way. So that's the main area, my belief system, that know your inner self. Which people, there's a lack of, that's why most of the people, whenever you talk in this to this, people get excited, people get calm, because that we noticed in your earlier lecture, everybody was away, up from the ground, because this thing is all scrap. Right, so when you come here, that's what you call heart and gut, right? The gut is it goes, it moves like that. So this is the most guiding factor and the most belief system which I believe in.
Good, and there's a congruency between your belief system and your purpose and the way you move through life, yes?
Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you, my friend.
Sorry, I stood on a bee and my foot's pulsating, so I thought I'd try elevating it a bit.
Yeah. Oh, is it swollen?
Yeah. So I've written down lots of different ways of saying the same thing. So I think I'll just sum it up by saying that I don't have what it takes to earn my seat at the table.
How do you feel recognising that?
I've recognised it for many years, and it's part of that core values where it shows up. It showed up when I was younger, it showed up when I took up trading, it's showing up now as I try to move into something that's commercially viable. It's something that just keeps showing up in many different forms.
So obviously now is not the space for that, but doing some deeper work around that is going to be of great service to you, because you are very acutely aware of it and you recognise it, and it's an emotional wounding. I mean, I feel that. I'm I can feel that pain from you. And it's something that you really, if you focus on that tremendously, and this is no, just to speak very authentically here, you can do all the personal development workshops, professional growth workshops that you want.
Which I have for 15 years.
You're a serial professional growth, personal growth attendee. If you don't get that foundation right, if you don't address those core issues, those core identity issues, it's just going to keep coming through and seeping through everything you do. And that's the reality of it. You have to address that. And that could lead you down the garden path to other areas, and that's why most people don't want to go down that path, because it's fucking traumatizing. And you're opening up a can of worms that can be very confronting. But if you do it, and you do it with the right support, the well-aligned support, it can change your life. And it will change the trajectory of where you're going as well. Deeply. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I tricked myself into coming right backwards. So the first thing I've learnt about myself is I will fool myself if I possibly can. Avoidance to look at the real issue. Very good at that. But yeah, an interesting thing I've wrote loads of but a lot of my relationships are out of balance, I've noticed. So,
balance.
Out of balance.
Out of balance,
yes. Yeah. So I look at why, because it's like, why are they out of balance? And it's about expectation again, I think. Because I focus mostly on my son, you know, and it feels like he takes. But in actual fact, he doesn't. He does give back as well. Want to think about that. Anyway, yeah, the core of it is fairness and balance, and I'm trying to be fair and balance things, you know. But inevitably, I'm coming out still feeling, you know, that the other person isn't in balance with me. In other words, that what my son takes is more than what I get or receive.
Do you feel?
But here's the key. So I look at, well, what if you really give me what I wanted? And then I realise that I have a problem in receiving. It's not that I'm out of balance, it's the mere fact that I can't receive. So everything is out of balance because of me, because I don't feel worthy enough to receive. And that's why I've come full circle. And that fits in with my why. Why do I want to do what I'm doing? Because I'm trying to reconnect people with the planet because I feel they're disconnected, you know. So I'm reflecting my disconnection, you know. So yeah, I've got to be careful.
Wow. I'll tell you what, guys, 20, 30 minutes and I'm feeling I need a break. This is awesome. This is some very deeply profound realizations that you've all had. Can you understand this? Do you understand that what you've realised just now, that you've verbalised, and maybe you've known it for some time, but to verbalise it in this time and space and to have that deep, authentic response that you're having, it's fucking life-changing. You have to roll with this momentum now, yeah? Because you have to roll with the unstoppable momentum of realisation and understanding that you have. This is tremendous. I'm very inspired and I'm very proud for if it's worth anything, because what you're going through right now, what you're placing yourselves through, the fact that you're looking at yourself so profoundly, so deeply, you're choosing to do that. And I know there's trust here in this group, but to do that in front of people, but to do that in front of yourself, and to actually look at why your life isn't where you'd like it to be, it's very confronting, and most people do not do that work. I promise you, I know most people don't. Because it's too hard, because it hurts too much, because most of us are too afraid of pain. I know world champion fighters that will get in the ring and will get their head smashed in. And I have no problem with that. But when they start to look at an issue with mum or dad, they're out the door, fighting in the ring again. This stuff's hard. I praise and commend you for doing what you're doing. Continue your journey. The results we produce always reveal the underlying beliefs that support this expression. In other words, the results are who we are in life, our outcomes, our lived experiences. Now it's time to examine and list those areas along with the beliefs and feelings that support them. These areas are currently emotional liabilities. They are the beliefs that limit us and need to be transmuted into a set of beliefs that are more productive and conducive to our growth and to our purpose, to who we truly are. Apply the following 7 questions to every area of your life. This is an exhaustive, just choose one area. Whether it be, if I were you, I would choose, but feel drawn to choose whatever area of life you want. You don't have to follow my 9 area of life model. You can follow whatever area of life model you like. There's many different, Dr. John DeMartini has 7 areas of life, for example. Certain practitioners, I can't remember the lady's name, Barbara, she has like 12 areas of life. Effectively though, it encompasses everything that I speak to in the 9 areas of life and that people like John DeMartini do as well. So there they are anyway. There are the areas of life. But I would just choose one. I would choose vocation, which is your passion, your purpose, your mission. Choose that and apply the 7 questions in that area. But if you feel drawn to family or family and specifically to mum and dad or sibling or child or intimate partner, it's fine as well. Connect to these 7 questions that leave you feeling, the 7 questions, an area of life that leave you feeling limited, incompetent, unqualified, despondent, disconnected or fearful. Make a list that includes the unfulfilling activity and the limiting belief associated with the negative feelings behind it. Remember to do this for each area of life. Negate that. Okay, I've got that there as an understanding. So these are the 7 questions. Remember we're just focusing on vocation. We're focusing on your purpose and your mission. What do you feel you're not very proficient at and why do you think that is so? Within the dynamic of your vocation. I'll bring this up in a second. I just want to have a look at something. Sorry. Yeah, cool. Okay. Just wanted to double check something. Go for it with those questions. If you have any questions on those questions, please ask. Do you have like a bottled water or something? Bottled water, yeah. Do you have bottled water? Do you have a new bottle? Is that okay? Oh, there, okay, that's all right. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's all right. No, it's only half an hour, so Yeah. Good. Give you another minute. How are we going? Very bad? That's okay. Just remember that these exercises require a great deal of practice, patience and persistence. And very few people will reveal the fullness of the response to the question in 5 or 10 minutes, unless they've done a great deal of this very specific work in the past. And it's very fresh in their mind still. And they're very accustomed to deconstructing self in such a way that they can extract profound revelation with just a quick thought. Doesn't happen. Today is about introducing this to you and introducing the power that self-exploration carries. The power that comes from moving towards understanding self. And the power that comes from being connected deeply and intimately to self and understanding self in every way possible. That's what today is about. These are complex, integrated, multi-layered questions that require time and exposure and feedback, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, referencing. I don't quite understand this. What do you think of this? Okay, I'll get that now. You go back, you respond, you elaborate. This has now come up. How do I deal with this? And it's a process. Please understand that. Please understand that. Okay? It's contextually, I thought very deeply about should I be providing you with these questions and these exercises, because I know that they are weeks and months of journeying, or at least days and weeks of journeying intensely. But if you can be exposed to it and you know what's possible, I mean, that first set of questions, those first series of questions really opened us up. You know what's possible now, and you know that with deeper digging, what you can achieve, and that's exciting. Choose to focus on what's exciting. Choose to focus on the possibilities. Yes, it may come with some challenge and pain points and fear and obstruction, but that's okay. That's part of life. You're going to experience that wherever you go. Here it is. You either do this work consciously or it's going to show up unconsciously in your life, and the experience is going to be the same. The experience will be the same. Obstruction, constriction, fear, restriction, rigidness. You either address it consciously and move it on, shift it, or just allow it to become prevalent and remain prevalent in your life. Your choice. Disassembling our limiting beliefs. To begin dismantling our limiting beliefs, we need to link them to a painful negative emotional anchor. In other words, we need to clearly be able to observe that the belief system we adhere to is clearly causing a continuity in the negativity we are experiencing in life regularly. The more painful the anchor, the more effective it will be. Start by asking yourself some very direct questions about each identified belief, such as, what does the belief system cost me emotionally, relationally, vocationally, mentally, physically, spiritually? Just address it vocationally. So when you're looking at these beliefs and you're understanding these limiting beliefs, what do they cost you? What's the opportunity cost of choosing to continue to allow this limiting, permeating belief system, this permeating, limiting belief system enter your sphere of awareness, your consciousness, the way you act and move through the world? And in what other ways is this belief system affecting you across all areas of life? And beyond that, why did you get anchored in this limiting belief system to begin with? What is the source? Now, that's a very deep question. And now that's a question that generally comes with a great deal of exploration into self. And you do require, not always, but you do require at times professional or educated or experienced feedback to come back to you and provide you with a mirror or understanding as to where that may come from, what the source is. Continuing to question the validity and consequences of any limiting belief alongside our own convictions and actions will expose a wide array of negative emotional anchors for those beliefs. Once they come to represent pain, it becomes much easier to move away from them and move towards more empowering beliefs that free us from ignorance and illusion and pain and discomfort and fear. And if you can connect to that and you make this process bigger than you, because when you are free and liberated from that pain and that bullshit and that limitation, you are of greater service to the world. You are of greater service to humanity. You are of greater service to your own path. And that becomes deeply inspiring, empowering, and liberating. And you make this process and you make the challenge and the difficulty of this process, of this self-inquiry, deeper, grander, bigger, larger than you. And that pain gets pushed to the side and you work through the pain and you choose to consciously because you believe wholly in yourself and you believe in the outcome that can be the positive outcome that can be associated with moving through these questions. I want to give you a couple of minutes to focus on these questions now. Again, this is a taster. This is allowing you to understand where you can go, where you have the potential and the power to go. And this, let me tell you something, people. This is just one very small component of looking at self. And don't allow it to be overwhelming, because we don't do it all in one hit. We don't do everything at once. We look at it methodically, slowly, genuinely, gently. We approach it. How do you eat an elephant? That proverb, how do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. We may go right back to the beginning and just look at question 1 again. And that's the bite size that we take at that time. We may focus on that for days. And that's okay. There's no rush. There's no rush. It's better to live a life of authenticity that is shorter in lifespan than to live a life of incongruency that is longer. Take your time. The microphone. Thank you. Yes, Manu.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Don't you think if we talk or we think in these limiting beliefs, and when we have a purpose, when we think that whatever we are doing or why is right or why is correct, and we feel happy about it, right? And when we start looking or limiting beliefs, so that will create a contradiction in our personality. You know, one, we are talking what are our strengths, and now we are talking what are our weaknesses. We are digging deep inside to look out what exactly is our weakness. Although we are very happy. If I'll talk about myself, I'm very happy I know my strengths. I know to some extent my clarity of purpose. And if I'll look into this is like an earthquake, you know, happening in my mind, in my personality.
Yeah. It can be. Very confronting, yes.
Yeah.
I'll answer it in this way, if I may. You're familiar with the old, in the Roman times, in the Roman Greco times, they used to have gladiator fights. Everybody familiar with that? Similar to boxing or UFC. You know what UFC, MMA, mixed martial arts, everybody familiar with that? That's a good example. Because the gladiator times was a more advanced, extrapolated version of that, because they had weaponry as well. Do you think if one of those gladiators went in there knowing that he wasn't very good using the spear, but that was a weakness of his, but he chose not to acknowledge that weakness or focus on that weakness to then develop it, and he went in there at a deficit, knowing that was a deficit, or not knowing that was a deficit because he wanted to ignore it, and he thought, well, I know my strengths, I'll play to them. But the other gentleman used a spear, and he had to use a spear, but he wasn't proficient at that. What do you think would happen? What would likely occur if the other warrior was proficient with a spear and he wasn't? What do you think would occur? He'd probably die. Because he didn't take ownership and acknowledge his weakness. Weaknesses aren't bad, my friend. Weaknesses are necessary. And we make our weaknesses our strengths by bringing them from the unconscious to the conscious. And the reality is that your weaknesses will play out in your life. irrespective of whether they are unconscious or conscious. When you make them conscious, you make them malleable. When they're malleable, you can transform them into strengths. I understand what you're saying, and you're correct. There will be a...
It's not a race. What I think is...
There is no race, correct.
There need not to be a position of win and lose.
Correct.
We are trying to make a position of win-win situation, right?
Correct.
So if you think in these terms,
Yes.
right, although spiritually it's very nice, mentally it's okay. But if you think in this, our limiting belief, what is holding us back? So, I'm a bit confused with this, you know.
Because these limiting beliefs, once they become exposed and once they become conscious and you're aware of them,
It's a hit on our ego.
yeah, your ego doesn't like to be unsafe. Your ego loves familiarity. But they're not permanent. You just said a moment ago, there's no race. Don't think for a minute that once you make these limiting beliefs conscious and you start to understand the fullness of yourself, the wholeness of yourself, that you are bound by that limiting belief for the rest of your life. You're already bound by it anyway. You already live that limiting belief because your model of reality dictates to you how you live your life. So you're already living that belief.
But don't you think that these all are mind games? You know, these are limiting beliefs and all. When we talk in terms of heart and gut, so now we are talking in terms of our head.
There's still an integration. The answer to your question, are they mind games or not? The answer to that question is, I can't answer that for you, only you can, with respect to a very careful evaluation of how you show up in life. So look at the quality of your relationships, look at the quality of your communication, look at the quality of who you are as a person, look at the quality of your emotional state, look at the consistency of your emotional state, look at the volatility of your emotional state, of the way you respond, react, the way you move through it. I can't answer that question for you. You may not have many limiting beliefs because you've done a great deal of work on you, on yourself. The reality is that we all at some stage in our life have beliefs that hinder our progress or our expansion. And you may be very content with where you are in life, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Then there's no need for you to look at yourself any deeper. But you're here because you want to grow. You're at this Excel Vision Villas. You're at the iLabs Institute for a month because you want to grow. So there's not that you're at a deficit because you want to grow, but just because you feel you can get more, deeper, broader with your life. This is just an opportunity to do the same thing. We don't know what we don't know. If you don't look at this area of your life, because it's not just mind games, because our belief systems affect our emotionality. Our belief systems affect the way we feel. That becomes heart and gut. The way we instinctually move through life, the way we feel and the way we respond, our level of emotionality in response to certain situations are triggered by our belief systems. And whether they are limiting or not is determined by whether there is alignment in who we are and who we wish to be. I understand your concern, and it's confronting. But just know that it's not permanent. Once you raise these belief systems, whether they're limiting or not, to your consciousness, you have a choice then to keep them.
Yeah, because when we start answering or even understanding the questions, the deep inside, the ego, that comes in picture. Oh, what's going on? No, ignore them. You know,
Well, the ego's
although
going
it's
to
very
say
challenging, this is very challenging. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of risk and a lot of courage to answer them.
Correct. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. It's the hero's journey. It is the hero's journey. What you're describing is the hero's journey. And you can look up Joseph Campbell. He articulates the hero's journey perfectly. Joseph Campbell is an American poet, philosopher, cross-cultural mythologist. I think I mentioned him last week. And he speaks to the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is not without trial and tribulation. And the hero's journey is an authentic path of the human person. It really is. And it requires courage, and it requires moving through fear, and it requires understanding self, and it requires pain and discomfort. And you're asking why? Because if you ignore pain and discomfort, you're ignoring an integral aspect of life. You're not whole and you are fragmented, you are broken. You're choosing to focus on the joy, the elation, the happiness, and you're negating exactly what gives you that joy, happiness, and elation. Because without fear, pain, discomfort, you won't know what joy is. You have no reference point because we live in a dualistic world. We live in a world of polarity. Do you understand that? And therefore your perceptions of the world is skewed if you only focus on the good, the grand, the beautiful, and you're fragmented by nature. And you will constantly be at friction in some way or another. And if you're not consciously in friction, you'll be unconsciously in friction. And it will play out in various areas of your life. And you can observe that behaviorally. You can observe that in your relationships. But you have to be very honest with yourself and truthful. And it's challenging, bro. It's very challenging.
It's very challenging. And I feel these are very huge questions.
They are.
Right? And one thing which is coming in my mind is, we have, let's say we have 100% of data, out of which what we call is 10% is in the conscious mind and the 90% is the unconscious mind. Let's take an example. So suppose I'm crossing a road. So I have just, very few and the truck is coming. I have very few options. Either I'll go back or go out. Now that part of multiprocessing or the processing which our brain does, it comes from the back unconscious data, right? Thin slices, what Malcolm Gladwell says, they use thin slice that the data and get the result. But when you ask about these questions, when we talk about these questions, don't you think our behavioral patterns or that data, be it conscious or unconscious, is very limited, just because it is based on our upbringing, based on our exposure and all. And when we talk about, and when we come down to answer these questions, don't you think that will not be justice to these questions? Because we'll be answering the question, let's say, for first question, right? That was a very powerful question. What do you feel you are not proficient at? I feel I'm not proficient in communication, right? I don't communicate well. But I feel this will not be a justice to this question. This is a very huge question which I should answer, And if I'll answer in such a way that I'm a bad communicator, that is not a real justification to this question. So what I'm saying is I have a limited data, right? And this question is very big for me. And I'll only be able to answer that question according to my data, according to my...
What's wrong with that?
Sorry?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with meeting yourself where you're at? What's wrong with working with what you have? I don't have an expectation on you that you must answer that question like Einstein or like Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud or a great Swamiji that rests in the Ganges. I don't have that expectation on you. Why are you placing that expectation on yourself? Why are you striving for perfection? Do you have a belief system that you must be perfect in everything that you do? Meet yourself where you're at. Brother, don't go too far. You don't need to. You go where you're at, bite-sized. Otherwise, it becomes too overwhelming. And that's why having someone to guide you...
I got it.
I'm feeling it, man. It's hard. I've been there. It's really hard. And I don't feel that you're making excuses. I just feel that you're a little bit overwhelmed right now because you're actually going really deep into the question, which is exactly what needs to say. It's giving me goosebumps. That's getting me excited. And you're not sure how to navigate your way through this thorny jungle. And it's hard. But with the right people in your life, you can do it. And this work is necessary for everyone. It's necessary to go deep in an equilibrated manner. I promise you it is. Because you're defining that now. The way you're responding to this. It's beautiful. It really is. And you have a great deal of clarity around it as well. It's just that it's very overwhelming and confronting. And I appreciate your vulnerability. I would be very surprised if these questions weren't confronting for any of you. Because it means that you're actually not going deep enough and you're not addressing the question properly. You're not doing it justice, it's nature justice. You're just fast tracking that because you're going quite deep, quite quick. But to say that you're a bad communicator, I believe is misplaced. To say that you could be more effective in your communication, fantastic. There's a model for you to be more effective in your communication. Solution right there. Is it the be all and end all? Will it resonate with you? I don't know. Try it and see. It's a very powerful communication model. I believe so. There are many other communication models as well. You practice with patience and persistence, and you apply in your life. And if it resonates and it makes a tangible difference in your behaviours and your outcomes and in your relationships, and you can observe that, then the model works for you. You're not a bad communicator. You just need to learn new tools in how to communicate. This does it for you. It's a very deep communicative tool. Who are you? And who do you wish to be? And when we go back, you're here to challenge yourself. You're here to grow. You're here to ask questions. You're here to be the best fucking version of yourself. And if you don't ask questions, and if you're not confronted, and if you're not challenged, and if you don't experience fear and pain, then you're not doing that. You're not being the best version of yourself. Because when you only experience one polarity or one area of life, you're polarized. When you choose to do that, you're polarized. You're not living the fullness of life. And pain and suffering will show up in your life one way or the other, and it will show up unconsciously. And I promise you that. And when you understand that, and when you connect fully to that, and when you become very honest with yourself, and you accept that experiencing pain, fear, and challenge is actually okay. It's actually allowed. You can do that. It's not a problem. It's not the end of the world to experience pain, to experience fear, and to experience challenge. It's actually okay. It's actually an intricate part of life. And when you understand who you are in that moment and who you wish to be, and you connect the two, and the two marry up, then you can begin to clearly answer why you're here. And that becomes valuable to your journey and to the journey of others. I want to thank you immensely for your time. I wish I could continue this very profound, prolific journey with you. But those circumstances don't permit today. Thank you for your powerful questions. Thank you for your commitment, your dedication, your involvement, the way that you challenged yourself, the way that you went deep, you were vulnerable, you were emotional. I deeply appreciate that. I don't take that lightly. You could sit there in silence and not speak and say, yeah, questions are right, I'm not a good communicator. But you chose to ask questions. You chose to express yourself. You chose to talk about a deep part of you. All of you have done that today. And I'm very proud and I feel very enlightened and very honoured that you chose to share that today here with me and with us. And I urge you to continue the work in some way, shape or form. Because you'll only be doing a service to yourself and to others. Thank you.